Imagine walking 20, maybe 30 miles. You're trudging up a steep mountain ridge, your lungs burning, with a 70-pound pack digging into your shoulders. Or picture the sheer terror of an airborne deployment. You're jumping out of an airplane from 20,000 feet, plummeting into hostile territory in the dead of night, knowing enemy forces are actively hunting you. Then there's the exhausting endurance required to survive day after day in a 130-degree desert, wearing a heavy flak jacket while the wind violently blows sand in your face. It sounds like the physical conditioning required for an elite military deployment, but a growing movement in Catholic motivational circles uses these exact visceral descriptions to illustrate something entirely different: the daily, invisible battle required to simply live as a devout believer. The core theological concept defining this war traces back to the biblical figure Moses, who presented a harsh, inescapable binary. You are either on the way of life and good, which aligns with God, or the way of death and evil, governed by Satan. There is no middle ground. Because there is absolutely no neutral territory in this worldview, surviving daily life demands the hyper-vigilant mindset of a combat veteran. So if every day is an active war zone, what happens when a spiritual soldier inevitably takes a hit? This internal conflict is described by believers as a toilsome resistance. It is a relentless, painful struggle against deeply ingrained bad habits and your own worst inclinations. And the casualty rate on this battlefield is massive. The harsh reality is that even highly trained spiritual leaders, like priests, are frequently ambushed. Countless devout figures eventually come forward utterly crushed. They return from their own personal front lines, broken and bitterly disappointed in themselves. The nature of this capture is severe. Within this framework, falling into grave moral failings, like a pornography addiction or other serious offenses, known as moral sins, means these individuals have been literally taken hostage by the devil. We usually expect our religious leaders to exist in a state of peaceful, flawless purity. But behind closed doors, many are experiencing profound spiritual bondage and captivity. Spiritual warfare guarantees casualties, regardless of a person's rank or level of devotion. This forces a complete reevaluation of how a religious community should handle those who have fallen. This brings us to the counterintuitive logic at the heart of this militaristic theology. If you are in active combat, taking a hit is not a disgrace. Viewed through this lens, grave moral sins function as occupational hazards, wounds sustained while operating on the front lines. There is a massive distinction between being wounded in action and abandoning the fight. Falling into sin is a wound. The only true failure in this framework is desertion. Casting sin as a combat wound redirects the believer's energy. Success is measured by absolute, unbreakable resilience, rather than the maintenance of perfect purity. So, once a spiritual soldier is wounded and taken hostage by sin, what is the exact protocol to get back to the front lines? The recovery protocol is strict. First, you refuse to desert your post. Second, you rely entirely on grace to support you. And third, you offer immediate reparation through prayer and small physical or spiritual penances. This militaristic mindset works to dismantle the internal logic of religious guilt. It systematically strips away paralyzing toxic shame by treating spiritual failure like a physical injury. It demands a visceral call to action. You treat the wound, you pick your weapon back up, and you step right back onto the battlefield. This Catholic motivational framework acknowledges a brutal reality. The enemy will try to overrun you, and sometimes he will succeed. But it cements one absolute rule: surrender is simply not an option.
What lesson spoke to your heart today? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe for daily Bible wisdom.